Nick Whalen, Jeff Erickson here from RotoWire. In this video, we're going to give you some of our favorite waiver wire ads at each position as we start to look ahead to week 4 of the fantasy football season. We may mention some of the obvious names for this week. We will talk some Bucky Irving, but we're really looking for the under-the-radar pickups of the week. So with that in mind, Jeff Erickson, I'll let you lead us off. Who is your first sneaky ad for week 4?
All right, so I'm going non-sneaky. I'm going to go Bucky
All
Irving, though. Still only 35% rostered in Yahoo, so he's out there still in a lot of leagues. He has been the better runner than Rachaad White all 3 weeks so far this season. I was going to say 3 of the first 4, but there's only 3 weeks, 3 of the first 3 weeks. Todd Bowles had a quote saying he definitely has merited more playing time. Irving has. Rachaad White was outsnapped him on 3-1 because the Bucs were down from the word go. But Irving has been very effective as a runner. There's a question about whether his pass catching skills and his pass pro is up to speed, and that's always going to limit him a little bit. But if you're looking for a running back pickup this week, I think in those Yahoo leagues in particular, go out and get him.
Yeah, even if you're not starting Bucky Irving right away, I just want him on my roster. I don't think this is a trend that's going to reverse as the season goes along. I mean, we're 3 weeks in, and Todd Bowles is already saying we're going to see more Bucky Irving. I think that it's just going to go up and up as the season goes along. In other non-sneaky ads, Jeff, I will also mention Braelon Allen here, who's only 28% rostered on ESPN leagues. We talked about Braelon last week. Everybody's familiar with him at this point. He is mixing in early in games for the New York Jets. Still, to me, more of a handcuff. I want him if I have Breece Hall. But he's a depth piece that I'm willing to roster right now. Again, only 28% rostered in ESPN leagues. So we'll start with those 2 easy ones, 2 softballs here. Go grab Bucky Irving, go grab Braelon Allen if they're out there in your leagues. Let's go a little bit more off the beaten path here, Jeff. We'll get into the mud a bit. Who's your next sneaky ad?
All right. There is we all kind of talked about panicked how Jalen Warren fell out of the game plan yesterday. Turns out there's a reason why. He's got a knee issue. He's going to go get an MRI. Meanwhile, teammate Najee Harris had his arm in a sling today. Cordarrelle Patterson is out there in virtually every league. He's usually serving just to annoy us, to take away carries from our more deserving, in our minds, running backs. This dates back to the Arthur Smith days in Atlanta. Well, guess what? Arthur Smith still loves him, brought him aboard in Pittsburgh, and now Cordarrelle Patterson might be the guy this week for the Steelers, going up against a Colts team who, prior to week 3, was very pliable against the running game. Turns out they found the resistible force in the Chicago Bears and their run offense, but the Steelers are going to run against the Colts. So Cordarrelle Patterson could be a priority pickup this week.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see how that injury news develops on both Warren and Najee Harris, but we did start to see plenty of Cordarrelle Patterson in the second half this past week against the Chargers. My sneaky ad here, we're sticking with the Steelers, Jeff, and I'm going with Justin Fields.
Okay.
24% rostered in ESPN leagues. Obviously somebody you're considering more in Superflex, but I mean, he's outperformed a lot of the guys who were going in that, QB 10 to QB 16 range in most drafts. He's been better than Jared Goff, better than Kirk Cousins, Will Levis, Caleb Williams, Matthew Stafford, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. The rushing floor that Justin Fields is going to provide you week to week. That's what we're after here. And you mentioned that Colts matchup. I don't think this is a good Colts rush defense. I think they ran into the perfect opponent last week in the Chicago Bears. That made it look like a good rush defense. After the Colts, the Steelers get the Cowboys and the Raiders in their next 2 games. All of those are really appealing opponents to me. If I'm looking for a mobile quarterback, we just saw Caleb Williams throw for 350 yards on the Colts. The Cowboys have given up 72 points over the last 2 weeks, and the Raiders, they just made Andy Dalton look like Patrick Mahomes on Sundays. So really nice schedule coming up for the Steelers. And honestly, I think we could start to see more from Fields as a runner. He made a lot of his bones in the passing game last week against the Chargers. Again, if you're in Superflex, hopefully he's not out there. If he is, go grab him. But I'm fine rostering Justin Fields right now, even in single QB leagues, as my backup, especially with bye weeks starting to stack up in the coming weeks. All right, Jeff, who's next on your list?
Okay, so we talked about the Bears and how they failed against the Colts. Mostly this was the DeAndre Swift problem. Swift also had the negative 10-yard 4th down rushing play, the worst 4th down play we've seen so far this year. Teammate Roschon Johnson, though, was actually kind of effective. 8 for 30, caught 4 passes for 32 yards. He had been a healthy scratch earlier. Travis Homer is on IR right now, so Johnson's back in the mix, and he's actually maybe the better runner all along after all. I think it might be over for DeAndre Swift. I think Johnson carries a little bit more. Goes up against the Rams team, who has been pliable against the run as well. I think this is, at least the matchup is fine. I have my qualms about the Bears offensive line and their rushing offense as a whole. I think they need to get some balance in their life, though. They need to get some running and able to kind of make things a little bit easier on Caleb Williams. I think Roschon Johnson might be the answer to that there. I don't know if I start him this week, but hey, I've been in leagues where I've been, similarly desperate in the past. Mm-hmm. And any port in the storm, I think Johnson is one of those ports. I'd go Cordarrelle Patterson over Johnson, but I think Johnson's interesting.
Yeah, he carried 8 times, drew more targets than DeAndre Swift against the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, maybe there's a case to keep an eye on Khalil Herbert in that backfield. I think they're just searching for any answer right now. The Bears have to get this running game going. DeAndre Swift, by the way, he has 5 carries this season, Jeff, that have gone for more than 5 yards. He has 11 carries of 0 yards or fewer, including the run on that speed option on 4th down. Another Bear who I'm keeping an eye on at the tight end position, Jeff, Cole Kmet. I think we have to pay attention to him coming out of week 3. On the season, he's been targeted on 21% of his routes. That ranks 7th among tight ends so far in the NFL. He's emerged as kind of this nice, safe option for Caleb Williams. The Bears, as we just said, they cannot run the ball. And I don't see that changing to the point where it becomes a strength at any point soon. Couldn't run the ball in the worst defense in football this past week in the Indianapolis Colts. And if you can't do that, I don't see it getting a whole lot better in the near future. In a roundabout way for fantasy, I think that actually helps the entire passing game. Like, the plan is not for Caleb Williams to come in and throw the ball 40 to 50 times every week, but that's what he had to do against the Indianapolis Colts. And the more that happens, the more good news that is for someone like Cole Kmet. He's going to be behind DJ Moore. He's going to be behind Rome Odunze, maybe even Keenan Allen when he's healthy in terms of targets. But I think there's going to be enough trickle down in that Bears offense, assuming they have to continue to lean on the pass because they cannot run, that I don't mind going out and grabbing Cole Kmet. We're looking for anything right now at the tight end position.
I like that one, but if you can't get Kmet, say if you get outbid on him, I'd make my backup bid on Ty Conklin, who had 6 targets on Thursday night against the Pats. He was not very involved the first 2 weeks of the season. I think that'll increase over the course of the season. He's still a pretty solid mid-teens tight end for me.
Yeah, and look, if I got a couple other tight ends here. We're talking deep league. We're talking, if you want to build out some depth on your rosters. 2 tight ends in the NFC North, Tucker Kraft and Brock Wright. So we'll start with Brock Wright. If Sam Laporta misses any time, he's dealing with an ankle injury, ended up leaving that game in week 3, came back, but was very limited in the second half. If Laporta misses time, Brock Wright is going to be the tight end to own for the Detroit Lions. With Laporta hobbled last week against the Cardinals, we saw Brock Wright play 27 of 34 snaps in the second half. He was already on the field a ton in 2 tight end sets with Sam Laporta even before that ankle injury. Had 4 catches on 5 targets last week. Again, if Sam Laporta is out, this should be a decent matchup for Brock Wright against Seattle. Keep in mind, this is the same Seattle team that allowed Hunter Henry to get loose for 8 catches on 12 targets and over 100 yards in week 2. And then Tucker Kraft, still more of a speculative situation for me, but he continues to win the snap share pretty handedly over Luke Musgrave in Green Bay. It was actually a little bit closer in week 3, but a lot of that was Green Bay, kind of trying to compact things and run a lot of 2 tight end sets with Malik Willis. But on balance, Kraft is running more routes. He's commanding more targets than Luke Musgrave. Ultimately, there's a long pecking order when it comes to Green Bay. We got 4 receivers we feel like you need to feed here. So you got to be realistic about the upside. But again, if you're in a deep league, if you're looking for a spec ad at tight end, I don't mind going out and grabbing Tucker Kraft. Before we get to our next sneaky ad, if you're enjoying this video, please take a moment to give it a like. Make sure you're subscribed to the RotoWire YouTube channel as well. That way you won't miss any of our content through the rest of the NFL season. All right, Jeff, we're getting to the nitty gritty. Who else is on your list?
All right, I've got one more for you here. Only had 2 catches against the Raiders this week. Xavier Legette from the Carolina Panthers went 2 for 42 yards, but we've got the first-round pedigree. We have a competent quarterback now in Andy Dalton, and Adam Thielen is hurt. He's dealing with the hamstring injury, got hurt on that touchdown reception there. One of the nicer passes we've seen this season, certainly the nicest pass Carolina has seen this season. Legette could step up in class this week. Going against the Bengals, presumably they're going to have to throw a decent amount. Legette should be somebody that's pretty involved in the passing game. He would be a flex play for most people, but we're talking about someone with a decent amount of upside, maybe some goal line upside too. So I like Legette as a possibility.
It's just good to be talking about the Carolina Panthers as a real NFL offense again.
Yes.
This is the Andy Dalton effect. The only quarterback this season to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in a game. Obviously was able to get both Chuba Hubbard and Deontay Johnson unlocked against the Raiders. I'll throw out a couple deep league wide receivers to keep an eye on, Jeff. Jalen Nailor with the Minnesota Vikings, 4% rostered right now in ESPN leagues. He's only been targeted 9 times on the season, so we need to temper expectations here, but he's found the end zone 3 times already in 3 games. Jordan Addison, of course, has missed the last 2. Hasn't been on the practice field yet, so I think he could easily miss another game or 2. Jalen Nailor was in on 54 of 61 snaps for the Vikings this past week against the Texans. He's clearly the number 2 behind Justin Jefferson for as long as Jordan Addison is out. And kind of like this matchup against Green Bay in week 4. I mean, the Packers have generated a ton of takeaways, have been very opportunistic on that defense, but they're still prone to giving up yardage. They're still prone to giving up big plays. We've seen it each of the last few weeks. And honestly, the way Sam Darnold is playing right now, I think we have to give just kind of an overall upgrade to this Minnesota passing attack relative to our expectations. And that includes Jalen Nailor as long as Jordan Addison is out. And then real quickly, Tutu Atwell. The Rams need big plays. As long as Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are out, they're going to have to find ways to move the ball downfield. That's kind of Tutu Atwell's specialty. He was second in snaps at receiver behind only Demarcus Robinson for the Rams this past week. He ran 24 routes, was targeted 5 times, had a huge play in the fourth quarter to set up the go-ahead touchdown. Atwell is, to me, basically like a mega discount Rashid Shaheed, right? You're going to have to live with the ups and the downs, but the Rams are going to be scratching and clawing to find big plays with all the injuries they have right now. Atwell kind of looked like he was the guy over Tyler Johnson in week 3 against Arizona. So in deeper leagues, keep an eye on him. Still keeping an eye on Jordan Whittington as well, as long as Cooper Kupp is out of action. All right, Jeff, that'll do it for this week's edition of Sneaky Waiver Wire Ads. Again, please subscribe to the RotoWire YouTube channel. We'll have a ton of content coming your way every week through the NFL season. And if you want to check out all of our content, all of our tools over at RotoWire.com, just go to RotoWire.com/try, TRY. That'll get you a free peek, free access to everything on our site. No credit card required. Just put in your email. That's all it takes. Don't even have to cancel like 3 or 5 or 7 days later. Just throw in the email. You get to see everything on our site. That's RotoWire.com/try.